following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco and across the moat from Oakland. I'm at the 420 Studios down by the lagoon in one of the most well-kept secrets in the world. Alameda is a terrific little town, and I'm proud to live here and have for some, 26 years now. And, one of the things I do is that besides just harping on the unholy trinity of big business, organized religion, and government, which is plenty to harp on there, I also get to talk to some of the most interesting people in the whole world, and one of them is my old buddy Ronnie Rabinovich, who is on many of these shows on Comfortably Zoned.
How are you, Ralph?
How you doing, Ronnie?
Good.
You brought to our airwaves tonight a returnee. We've had him on 2 or 3 different programs. He's one of the most interesting, fascinating people I've ever talked to, although I'm going to get into some of the things that I disagree with him about based on previous shows. But I'd like to introduce Jack O'Halloran.
How you doing, fellas?
Hi, Jack. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, thank you. You're going to disagree with me?
I'm glad you're here. I've had the pleasure of interviewing you. You're, let's get it out of the way. You're the son of one of the most notorious gangsters that ever lived, Albert Anastasia. Is that a fair description?
That's a fair description, I guess. Depends on how you look at it.
And in your own right, you were a professional football player, contending heavyweight boxer, a successful author, and a successful actor. Now, how's that for one lifetime?
That's pretty good.
Well, we got a few more things to do.
We all do.
Right.
We're hoping. But based on what you've completed, you're quite a character, young man. And
he's
proud
my
to
buddy.
have you back.
He's my buddy.
One of the things we talked about that I'd like clarification on your point of view was the Kennedy assassination. You were somewhat involved in the mafia. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a right or wrong. I'm the least judgmental person on the face of the earth, and I don't think there's anything to judge you about. We've talked about this before. Of all the groups, organized religion, big business, anything, sports franchises, whatever you could think of, the insurance business, I would say the mafia has more integrity than all of those institutions put together. Now,
I agree.
You can argue that there are some offsetting stuff that goes on, but based on your involvement, and what we talked about, you seem to have a great insight as to what happened when John Kennedy was killed in Dallas. Now, from what I ascertained and what we talked about, you're convinced that the limousine driver, the Secret Service agent, although he may have been culpable of not reacting quickly enough, not pulling out quickly enough. You took it a step further. You said in an interview with me that this guy, limousine driver, turns around and fired one of the shots that went into Kennedy that day.
Well, there's actually footage of that, so it's not just my saying so.
Well, you know, I know, and I looked for that footage after the show, the Magruder tape, and I didn't see anything about I didn't see him, a limousine driver, turning around.
There was 8 frames. There were 8 frames that were cut out of the tape that was shown. And then a year later, or actually 5 years later, 10 years later, the tape was given over to some people, and then the FBI put their own version of things on the YouTube and stuff because it was exposed by someone else. And the 8 frames show him turning deliberately. And what people don't realize, and if you look at this Magruder tape, you will see that the Secret Service people backed off of Kennedy's car as they came down Dealey Plaza. And they backed off to the car behind it because when the gunfire started, they were running up towards his car, okay?
Right.
And that's on tape. And they backed off because they knew there was going to be gunfire there, all right? Now, you're talking about here's the President of the United States in an open car, yeah? It took 4 months for them to re-ramp that route down Dealey Plaza. Now, you have the President of the United States in an open car, and the Byrd Building, the book depository is right there, and the windows are open, and people are walking around. That should never, ever happen when the President of the United States is below that building in a car. Right. Then you have several people coming off of a train station to walk over that bridge that the car was going to go underneath. One of them being Woody Harrelson's father, who was a hitman for New Orleans. That should have never happened.
Now, how about the accusation by Trump that what's his face, that little wormy guy from Arizona or Texas,
Texas.
His dad was involved in it. Well,
the senator from Texas.
Right.
What the hell's his name?
Who?
I can't. The senator. He just got reelected. Senator from Texas. He beat that O'Rourke.
Yeah, Trump made an
the guy
allegation.
that ran for president.
Yeah, Trump made an allegation in the primaries that his dad was involved in the assassination as well.
No, that's not true. The assassination, everybody has all these fictitious runaround stories and everything. The assassination of Kennedy was designed by the bankers of Geneva. And the reason for it was Joseph Kennedy, if you're gonna look at one person who would be responsible for the death of Jack Kennedy, it would be his father, Joe.
Talked about that. Joseph Kennedy basically set it up to have his kids.
He set him up,
of course, but by his actions was directly responsible. I could appreciate that, but
that's right.
I look for the Magruder thing. So it isn't in there. Did you actually see that footage, that 8 seconds that was taken out? Did you yourself?
Want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Could you send it to me too? I'd love to see it.
Send me an email. See, you can go on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube now because, like I said, the FBI has a version of what they proclaim that they got the whole footage.
Which version
all
is
on YouTube because it was exposed.
You're going to send? Are you going to send me something that's on YouTube that has those 8 seconds?
It's already there.
Okay.
It is.
Kennedy assassination. It was exposed by a guy who's passed away, and he did it before he got passed away. He got tired of all the lies and all the garbage that was going on, and it even shows where the tree and the sign was cut on the 8 frames the way they were cut out. It's a definite that it was done that way. The footage was not.
But it doesn't show the actual.
The tape was sold to Life magazine for $150,000 before it was ever even given to them.
Right.
And they didn't get it for a year later.
You mean the
okay,
FBI?
Ronnie, you be responsible for getting those 8 seconds up.
I'll look for it.
The Comfortably Zoned Radio Network website. That would be just having that would be amazing, really.
Wow.
It actually shows him turning, and you have to understand something else. When the gunfire started, he didn't put the pedal on the metal and take off. He actually slowed down, veered over to the left to cut off the motorcycle guy while all this shooting was going on. And people say, well, how come no one saw this or saw that? Well, you're talking about something that happened in 28 seconds.
28 seconds, right.
The very first shot they fired hit Kennedy in the throat. And he grabbed, you see his hands going up to his throat. There was a shot fired before that hit Conley. And Conley fell. Kennedy fell on top of Conley. And then he got shot in his lower back, which didn't come out till 10, 15 years later, that there was another bullet hole. And then and he's leaned over Conley between the seats. When the driver turned and took the last shot, he goes flying backwards, and the back of his head comes out. So that lays fallacy to all the one bullet theory from Oswald from the window and all that jazz. Okay,
all that crap. Yeah,
okay,
which is all crap. Now,
how many
anybody
do you think
knows
there were?
anyone who knows anything about shooting, rifles especially, you're talking about when they were talking about from the window that supposedly Oswald took these 3 shots. You're talking about a mail order rifle that is bolt action. Okay? Any shooter that shoots anything over 1,000 feet with variables such as wind, movement, downgrade, trees, signs, the whole 9 yards. Okay? Before a sniper or anyone that's ever done any skilled shooting takes a shot like that, they have to arrest their heart below 60, which is a tool that you learn how to do, because your pulse is in your finger. Okay? Now, you're going to tell me that a guy did that, took 3 shots with a bolt action rifle within 28 seconds? Please, don't insult my intelligence.
Right.
Okay. That part I can buy. It's the only thing that I have in the back of my head is that Secret Service agent who was interviewed for years after all of this.
Which one?
No, I don't think he was.
Himself.
Which one? You talking about Driver Greer? You talking about Greer who drove the car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Greer drove the car. Okay, he did a deathbed confession to his son. That's been published.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was his name?
Greer.
With a G?
With a G.
Greer.
All right.
Hmm.
All right. Off the subject
How many
a little
shots
bit.
were there? How many shots were there altogether?
There were 13 shots fired.
I mean, how many shooters?
There were a few.
Well, that's obviously unknown. That's the X amount. I would say 1 plus for sure.
I would say 4 or 5 plus.
4 or 5 plus.
15 shots fired.
No question. The reports, the witnesses that disappeared that reported shots and gun smoke from the grassy knoll, all this came to light in rush to judgment. And the fact that they had the nerve to suppress evidence for 75 years meant that there was something fishy. Why would they suppress evidence?
Do you think the Warren Commission report was accurate?
No, of course not.
Of course not. I don't
believe not. The
no.
people in it were people like Gerald Ford.
Right.
all Yale guys.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
As an example, a go-along to get along guy, if ever there was one, and
Right.
if there was anything to cover up, that would be the guy to go to. So we're in agreement.
When they went to question Ruby, when they went to question Jack Ruby, Jack Ruby told them, he said, "You cannot question me here. You must get me out of Dallas. This is not a place to question me."
Right.
And they said, the first thing he said to them was, "Oh, I guess you want me to tell you about Chicago, where he came from." They said, "No, we don't want to know anything about that." You know, everything about the whole thing down there, no one ever looked at all the bits and pieces and where all the anger came from and why everybody was so angry.
Sure.
And you have to
Well, they were
understand,
angry because they were screwed over by Kennedy, by Joseph Kennedy.
By Joe.
And you had 7 millionaires that could make it happen.
Here's one deal for you.
Go ahead.
H.L. Hunt comes to L.A. when Jack Kennedy's being nominated. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
H.L. Hunt comes to California with a suitcase full of money, gives it to Joe Kennedy so that Lyndon Johnson can run on the ticket. All right? Lyndon Johnson runs for vice president of the United States with Jack Kennedy because of that. Now, as soon as Jack Kennedy becomes president, his father whispers in his ear and he says, "All those oil guys down in Texas making all this money have a product called surplus oil that they pay no tax on. And I think it's time you taxed it." And they turned around and they applied a tax to the surplus oil business, which cost everyone down there like maybe $200-300 million a year. You think that would aggravate you a little bit?
In those days, that was more than $200 million today.
Right.
You think that would aggravate you a little bit?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit.
Was Johnson part of this at all?
The Bay of Pigs, where Joseph Kennedy told his son, "Those gentlemen going in that water do not need any ammunition in their weapons because should one of them get trigger happy and pull a trigger, it may start a whole uprising. What happens? They go in the water, they get slaughtered."
Right.
They got all killed, except for
Johnson had anything to do with this?
Say what?
Lyndon Johnson. Do you think he had anything to do with this shooting?
He was a puppet like the rest of them. The CIA, Jimmy Hoffa, everybody was a puppet involved in this.
Hunk.
They were all used like puppets, and nobody ever took. That's why you can never put the conspiracy theory together so dramatically well, because no one can figure out how someone did all this manipulating. And it was all this manipulating was done by one of the genius killers in the world, a guy called the Jackal, Carlos Sanchez.
Huh.
He orchestrated the Dealey Plaza deal. And he did that for the people of Europe who got screwed over very badly with the crash of 29.
Right.
It was aimed at them. There's so many stories that people never were told the truth about, and no one ever saw happening.
Are you ever thinking of publicizing this?
What?
Are you ever thinking of publicizing this, Jack?
Yeah, I'm going to write a book. One of the next books I write is going to be about, we're telling the truth one stage at a time. I mean, tell me this. What do you think happened to Joe Jr.? How do you think he died?
When that airplane crashed.
Yeah, why did he?
No,
why?
That's Jack's
What was
kid.
the airplane crash about?
That was John Kennedy Jr., yeah.
Yeah, no. I'm talking about Joe Kennedy Jr., the president.
Oh, the one that the president's
Ronnie, change the names, change the meaning.
Yeah.
His
Joe
son,
Kennedy. Right.
His oldest son, that he really wanted to be president.
Yes, he did.
He
really wanted
the war.
A super guy, war hero, all that jazz. He was 11 days before he was out of the service completely. Yeah?
Uh-huh.
And they put together a system. They put together a deal over there that they were going to fly this plane, like a kamikaze plane, into the German munition factories to end the war.
Uh-huh.
And they talked him into test piloting the plane.
Huh.
Wow.
They wanted him to be the test pilot. They talked him into test piloting the plane. He takes the plane up. Boof, you're a pile of shit. It explodes. He's dead. A week later, they scrapped the whole deal.
Huh. Everything
You
was...
never heard about that, did you?
No.
Look it up.
Wow.
It's there in black and white.
Huh. Unbelievable.
Okay, who talked him into flying that flight, and why?
They talked him into flying that flight because they wanted to get rid of the first Kennedy. See, you understand something. Listen to me carefully.
Who talked him into it, Jack?
Why don't you listen? Why don't you listen for a second? The man, Joseph, made some people very, very angry. So instead of killing him, they made him watch his sons die. You understand that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
And that's the bankers of Geneva. You're talking about people that, when the crash happened, 32 companies in Europe were bankrupt because it was aimed at them. And one or two of the companies belonged to the Rothschilds, and the one company that belonged to the Rothschilds was run by Blackjack Bouvier and his uncle and his father, Jackie Kennedy's father.
Right. Huh.
He ran the Rothschild company that got bankrupt. And when the crash was over,
that's ironic as hell.
when the crash was over, they turned around. They said to Joe Kennedy, "Wow, you did such a great job. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to become." They knew that people had to reinvest back in the country, so they had Joe Kennedy rewrite the bylaws of the SEC.
Uh-huh.
And he became the head of the SEC until 1935. When they get done, they said, "Wow, you did another great job. Now we're going to make you ambassador to England."
Right.
And some people in Chicago grabbed him and said, "Whoa, Sonny boy, you're going to go to England and you're going to be an ambassador. Well, there's a few people we want you to talk to over there because we want to tie some things together." First guy he sat down was the Shah of Iran. They put a bank together. And with that bank, they lent money to Hitler.
Huh.
And with the money they lent to Hitler, Hitler came back to the same crew, and then they added a guy called Khashoggi, and they bought weapons from him. And England turned around and said, "Joe Kennedy, you can't do something like that. You're supporting our enemy," because America wasn't in the war yet. He didn't think he was doing anything wrong, but he was making a lot of money. You understand? So they threw him out of England. But no one ever knew why he was actually thrown out. They said that he declared their democracy unsafe and a bunch of bullshit. And the reason why no one ever knew is because, A, number one, there was no television then. Number two, the newspapers were controlled by the Gore family in Indiana and by the Hertz family in California. And he was tight with both of them. And all the radio shows and everything were all owned by the guy down in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So nobody leaked anything out.
All right.
And he came
Let's
home.
get off the subject a little bit, Jack. I want to talk to you about something you mentioned, that you had an acquaintance with Trump. And I think we talked about this just right after his election. And we glossed over it because
he was very friendly with some people from Germany that lived in Florida. There was a guy, Walter Staudinger, who was there was a group in Germany that after the Second World War, these guys put together a few fashions of how to bring Germany back. And one of the biggest earning capacities they had over there was sex. They built a place called St. Pauli in Hamburg. I don't know if you've ever been to Hamburg, but St. Pauli is an amazing city that has anything you could ever dream of under the sun in physical sex. And they make a fortune from it. And they've made a fortune from it. And they took that money and they invested in other things and hotels and everything else. And they had a conglomeracy over there of a dozen people who brought into this country $100 million a year to invest. They own a lot of property in Florida. They own 4 blocks of Venice Beach. in California. They own 7 blocks of property on Sunset Boulevard. They own a bunch of Cabo San Lucas, and they've been all over the place. They were dear friends. I knew half of them. I spent time in Germany because we had a lot to do with gambling over there.
Okay.
And I knew Walter very well. Walter was a big fight fan, and he was his partner Wilfred Schultz was a super fight guy, and he ran Germany, and Walter ran the southern part of Germany. Wilfred ran Hamburg and the central part, Frankfurt, and Klaus Speer, who was Speer, the architect's nephew's son, ran Berlin.
How about Trump though? Where does Trump come in here?
Well, he used to go down the water to borrow money all the time.
Yeah. Huh.
And a guy from Texas. And Trump's a good guy. I mean, let me tell you something. As president of the United States, I think he's going to do more than a lot of people even dream of that he's doing. He's doing things. He's putting, you know what he's doing? He's taking socialism out and he's putting productivity back. He wants to bring manufacturing back into the country and create jobs. And he's doing a lot of that. This country was.
Let me ask you this: are the jobs he's creating doing anything to eliminate the expression "working poor" from our vocabulary?
He's trying to put back the term "the American way," the dream of American way. He's trying to show that people can earn and work and gain an education and go and gain a living the way they did back in 1900 and 1910. When people came here, they came here with nothing and created things. He's trying to show people that they don't have to just lingo
come to our country and assimilate and come in, and is that what he's trying to evoke?
I hope he shuts the borders down, to tell you the truth. I hope he turns it.
Well, how does that fit in with bringing people in and growing with other countries? And okay, so basically we have a base.
You believe in your mind that all the immigration has been brought in by the last 4 presidents, and they did it so that they could gain voting power? You believe that is good for what happened to this country?
No, actually, any illegal immigration that came in through Mexico, or at least most of it, and the Middle Eastern folks that are coming in, that's minimal. They came in to keep the price of food down, to do menial jobs that no one would do here.
God, you guys are so it's unbelievable. Do you know how many people have come across that border in the last 60 years, 70 years?
A bunch. So what?
And I can remember when I went to fight Norton in 1972, and I lived in San Diego, and a very dear friend of mine said, "Jack, come on, we'll take a ride. I want to show you something." I said, "Where are we going?" He said, "Go on, we're going to drive down to San Isidro here," and there was a big gully where the border was. You could look across to Mexico, and there were these paper cardboard houses over there, villages of them, paper cardboard houses, right? And all these people would line up at sundown. And when the sun was going down, they ran for the United States border. Every day.
Wow.
Every day.
Okay.
And they did that for hundreds of miles along the borderline. Now, one day he says to me, "Come on, we'll take another ride." I said, "Where are we going?" "Downtown L.A." I said, "Okay, what are we doing?" We parked on the corner. He said, "Keep your eye in the middle of the block there and watch what happens." Bam, sitting there about 5-10 minutes, all of a sudden, these vans, the INS, 2 people pull up, jump out, run up, banging on this door, taking all these people coming out, and they're all dressed up like they're going to a party or something. They got presidents wrapped up and all, and they're being loaded into the vans. I said, what the hell is that all about? He said, there's a wedding down in Mexico, and they're all getting a free ride home.
Huh.
Somebody called up and said there's a bunch of illegal Mexicans in this property. Boom, they came, take them out, and they take them back across the border. They'll be back next week.
And then they come back when they're ready.
Now come back, yeah. Yeah.
So you can't, the hypocrisy of a lot of things is finally truth has got to be told. One of the things I like about Trump is that a lot of truth is coming out. A lot, and people don't like it because people are so used to being educated and governed by watching the news at 6 o'clock at night. They really believe what they're watching on TV is real. They don't understand that those news shows are put together for awards. They don't tell you everything you're supposed to know. They tell you what they want you to know. You got the most un-American guy in the world, George Soros, who controls most of the media.
How is
they tell you what you want to know.
Okay.
You got to go back to our
CNN in that. Would you include CNN in that? Would you include Fox?
CNN when they first started was dynamite, and then they were bought. Okay, as they came down the street, they got paid, and they at one time told a lot of great stuff, but they don't do that anymore. Fox News is forget about it. You got to go back to 1950s in our country. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how old you guys are. I know, Ron, you're around my age.
I'm 73.
Well, I'm 75.
72.
Okay.
Go back to the 50s when a thing called welfare started. Yeah. There were women on the East Coast that used to go from Delaware up to Boston and stop at several different cities and pick up a check every month.
Huh. Jesus.
Okay, so there was welfare fraud, is what you're saying.
When welfare was put into place, you had families. Okay, the husband lived upstairs on like the third floor of an apartment house. The wife lived on the first floor. Every 9 months, she's pregnant with a new child. The more children, the more welfare. Yeah. And it was so disorientally and so badly run that they could have IDs in 3 different cities or 4 different cities and go and pick up a check in every one of those cities.
Well,
and then the
you're
administration,
making it sound as if these people are not victims in the old. Would you want to live a life of being, if you were a black woman and weren't educated and
wasn't
were
only black
third
women,
generation from being a slave, would you want to be voluntarily live a life of having a kid a year for 9 years? Do you think they're doing it just for that extra amount in the welfare check? Do you think they were doing it?
Do you think it was done? Did you ever look at? Have you ever looked at the low income housing developments in all the major cities?
But what caused these people to be in the low income housing developments in the first place? It was because up until very recently, their vote only counted for 3/4 of a vote. The free mule they were going to get and the 40 acres didn't really happen, did it? You know what I'm saying? Anything that we can do socially to get some sort of equality based on what happened. The American dream, Make America Great, it was founded by slave owners and based on imperialism. So what the hell is he talking about? Make America great again. You're not taking care of returning vets. You got homeless veterans. You got encampments of homeless of all sorts. Kids living on the street.
When's the last time vets were honored when they came home? What war?
World War II.
Probably. Yeah.
And Korea, some of the Korean guys, when they came home,
Korean
they had
guys. Right.
their jobs were still there. Still, they were applauded in their neighborhoods. Vietnam, you came home, they spit at you.
Right.
Okay. I'll agree.
Jobs were
with
no
that.
longer there. Nothing, everything was taken away. I walked into hospitals to see friends of mine, and they were living. They were in beds with shit and piss and everything.
Really? Huh.
You understand?
Right.
That's why that guy wrote the 4th of July, because it was true. Nobody was taking.
So we're not taking care of the vets, but we're bailing out big corporations and banks and shit. Explain that. Explain why the chairman of the board has to make of a corporation that your man Trump bails out, and GM stuck it in his ear the other day.
Wait a minute. Who bailed out what? What did Obama do with the auto industry? Obama gave billions of dollars to the auto industry, paid all their debts, and then they moved out of the country and started building factories everywhere.
I'm saying he didn't give money that trickled down to the worker. He gave money to management and to the stockholders of the industry. So the worker, who I happen to be concerned about, because I'm a middle-class schmuck myself, Johnny Lunchbucket, you go to work every day, that sort of thing.
Well, the real heroes of the country. Any man that takes a job and works it every day and feeds his family and everything, they're true heroes.
There they are.
No
You're
question about that. No question. I'm amongst those people. I'm not specifically that guy, but tax-wise, income-wise, all that. And like I say, the one expression that galls me and wasn't around when we were kids is working poor. And if
what part of the country are you from? Where are you from?
East Coast, where you're from.
Where were you raised at?
In Queens.
Okay, so you're a New York guy. I'm a Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts guy. Okay, so when you were a child, you're 70. You're in my age bracket. Okay.
Right.
When we were kids, when I was a kid, nobody ever gave me nothing. I went out and worked from the time I was 6 years old. I pulled orders. I used to go up to a store. It was up to an A&P that was 2 blocks away from my house when I was a kid, 6 years old. And I would walk up there with my wagon on a Saturday, and I took 3 old ladies' orders home for them. I think I made $1.50. Yeah.
They were good tippers,
so
by the way.
I started then. Then I started with newspaper routes. Then went to the shore at Wildwood every year and worked as a busboy, sold papers on the beach, the Daily News and the Bulletin, and set pins in the bowling alley. I did everything under the sun to earn $1. So I never asked my family for anything. Nothing. I paid for my own school clothes. And that's because my father put a guy next to me. And there was money put in I was looked after a lot when I was a kid, more than I ever realized.
I'm sure you were.
I could never get in trouble, and I could never figure that one out. But I never, if ever I got busted by the police, they took me in one door and took me home in the next door. Phone calls were made, this, that, the other. But, and I never had a record or any of that shit. You understand?
Yeah.
So, but I worked my ass off every day when I was a kid because that's the only thing I knew how to do. Go to school, play sports, and you worked. I always had a job after school doing something. Delivering papers, working in a drugstore, something. Doing something. These kids today do squat. They do nothing. They play computer games all day.
Yeah.
Jack, when we talked, and my ideas, I'm going to try to get to know you as much as I can. And one of my friends said when we talked, I glossed over a statement you made that you were and I'm going to quote, a made man.
18 years old.
Pardon me?
At 18 years old.
At 18 years old. Okay.
Yeah.
If you don't mind my saying so, and I'm not trying to, again, be judgmental, it isn't, it's unusual for me to try to get into someone's head as to how that affected them over their lifetime. In the sense, I don't care what you did to become a made man. That's none of my business. Not that you tell me, I wouldn't even ask.
Read my book and you'll know.
Pardon me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
My book.
Okay. I will. But I'm more concerned about how that affected you, whatever it was, over the course of your lifetime, your headset, any regrets, any guilt. You wake up like I didn't go to Vietnam. I was in the Air Force. I was stationed in California the whole time. There are times I wake up with a lot of guilt for skating going to Vietnam. So
they had,
and that's my trip. But
yeah.
Do you ever wake up with any sort of wow, I wish things, wish I would have done it differently. Some things that you regret that you'll never be able to come to grips with, perhaps. Anything you can share along those lines? Because it isn't usual.
The thing that I regret the most in my life, is that, and I being brought into the family, and I call it familia when I was a kid, I live under America, and I've lived under it all my life, and I still live under it. I have dear friends in Italy and Sicily and other parts of the world. The thing that I regret most in my life, of all the things that I've done, is that God gave me a great talent as an athlete. And boxing, I would take fights on 2 days' notice, a week's notice, because I was a very tough kid and I could fight. And I didn't do myself justice with the talent that was given to me. You understand? Of course, I also suffer from a disease called acromegaly, which is a tumor of the pituitary, which causes me to be taller than I am. Today, as a 75-year-old man, my skeleton weighs 60 pounds more than it should because of the density of my bones, because of acromegaly. Okay? And I should have never gotten in a ring, is what I was told by doctors years ago. But I was just one of these tough kids, and I had a lot of personal pride, and I had a lot of, but I was doing other business all the time. And boxing was a good front. It took me places that I had reason to be there, all around the world. And but I regret that because I had a great talent that I should have, when I put it to use, when I went to gyms and trained properly, I beat some of the best fighters in the world. And beat them good. It was not chump change. And so a lot of fighters that knew me and knew of my boxing career have a lot of adulation because I could fight, and I was proud to be one of a handful of fighters, I think 1 out of 10, in my life, or in the boxing life, that I was a world ranked fighter without ever boxing amateur. I never boxed amateur. Because when you played pro sport in those days, if you played a pro sport in one thing, you couldn't do anything in any other sport but be professional. That's the way it was.
Like Golden Gloves or anything?
No, God, no. My Golden Gloves boxing was in the street.
All right.
You probably have killed those guys with Golden Gloves.
Unbelievable. Somebody asked me one time, "Do you ever have any amateur fights?" I said, "Yeah, probably about 1,000."
What was your last fight, Jack?
Say it again.
What was the last time you're in your 70s? When was the last time you fought?
1974.
74.
I don't mean professionally.
Oh.
When was the last time you beat the hell out of somebody, or somebody beat the hell out of you?
No one ever beat the hell out of me in the street. Ever.
Good answer.
Never.
Yeah.
did anybody mess with you like in a bar just because you were who you were and they were, and you almost had to humor them?
I'll tell you a funny story. I'll give you a funny story.
Okay.
Back in the 70s, it was in the 70s when I was in the movie business. I was actually right before I got in the movie business. And I came out to California to sort out some problems for some friends. And Long Beach, California, was a longshoreman joint. I mean, the bars were all longshoreman bars, and they were just hell-raising joints. And I used to go down to one every week or so just to exercise myself. So it was a guy who was like a local loan shark who was in one bar, and he was terrorizing a lot of people, and they were working down. And so somebody came to me and said, "Jack, would you please help us out? This guy, he's really, really leaning on people really bad." I said, "What bar?" And they gave me the place, his name, and all that stuff. So I called up the Long Beach police, and I said, "Listen, if you get a whistle about a certain incident going on in the bar, wait about 45 minutes before you take off to go down there, yeah?" And the guy knew the captain of the police there. He said, "Yeah, no problem."
You had that kind of pull.
Yeah. So I went into the bar, and I walked up to the bartender, and I said, "Hey, you see that big clown down the end there?" He said, "Oh, God, yeah. Well, what about him?" I said, "Give him a glass of milk on me." He said, "What?
Milk?"
I said, "Give him a glass of milk on me. Tell him I say pussies ought to drink milk." And this guy, I could see his eyeballs getting red. And he came down the bar towards me, and he got in front of me, and I said, "You got a problem, son?" And he said, "No, you got a problem." I said, I want you to think real hard about what you're about to do." And I put him in a hospital for 6 months. And people bought it because they didn't have to pay him anymore.
Right.
People were so thrilled because they weren't being jeopardized working or anything. This guy was out of their lives, And I told him before, I said, "Let me say this to you. When you pick your hands up at me, sonny boy, every morning you wake up from now on, you will know who I am and what happened to you, because you're going to feel pain. You understand all that?
Yeah.
And if you ever mention my name to anybody, I'll come back and see you again."
Unbelievable.
So I used to do crazy shit like that, just for
Sure.
because it wasn't to be a bully on anybody. It was because I was helping a lot of people out.
Right.
I hated people who were bullies. I didn't like bullies, and I didn't like people who preyed on people.
I know. I don't either. I hate that.
Do you ever regret having to be that guy who did the settling?
No.
Okay.
I was taught very well at a young age.
All right.
I was taught very well.
A good sense of what you were doing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I pray. Thank God for Meyer Lansky and Frank Costello and people like that, because the education they gave me, I could get nowhere. And they probably saved me from doing 30 years in jail like a lot of my friends did. I have a lot of friends that did 30 years, 40 years, A lot of guys that died in jail.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't speak. They wouldn't talk. They lived under an oath, But those days are gone. These guys today that think they're tough guys that are wannabes, they'd rattle on their mothers if they got caught doing it.
Sure.
Not very honorable.
Simple question. Is the mafia dead, or is it still alive?
No, you know what? A lot of us, we went to legitimate businesses because why not? Why look over my shoulder anymore? I can do things legitimately with unions and stuff, and I can do it properly, without I don't believe in the drug business. I think it's bullshit.
Right. And
I think that the government's behind it more than anybody else. And in fact, I know that for a fact. That's another story altogether. But, drugs were so freely pushed out in the streets in this country because it separated people, and it also it took people's mindset away from them, and it made them yes people.
Sure.
Stop and think about that. When you stop and think about, people talk about, well, how these people got addicted. Well, you know what? what was the first prohibition in the country? Let me ask you a question. What was the first prohibition in this country?
Alcohol.
Alcohol.
Oh, it was not. No, it was not.
No,
1914, they signed a bill called the Harrison Act. You know what the Harrison Act pertained to?
No.
Cannabis.
The Harrison Act gave Big Pharma their power. Before the Harrison Act, you could walk into a drugstore, you could buy marijuana, cocaine was in Coca-Cola, you could buy opiums all over the counter, and there was no addictions. Yeah? The Harrison Act came in and gave Big Pharma all its power, so drugs went into the streets and alleyways.
Huh.
Right.
So you
Well,
created another.
I believe, Jack, if all drugs were decriminalized and prescribed, would that solve a lot of the world's problems?
Would have solved the problems a long time ago, but see, here's where your addiction problem came in. You go back into the 1910, 1915, that era. People got married and they stayed married. They had 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, some people 10 kids. Yeah? The husband worked, the mother usually she was always home taking care of kids. Problem was, after the Harrison Act was done in 1914, women would go to the doctor and complain about being fatigued and tired and all this jazz. So they gave them speed to wake up and Valium to go to sleep. Well, those drugs are going into their bodies. So every child they had after that, that's blood's going into that child.
Sure.
Understand?
Right.
In the early 70s, they did a documentary in a major hospital in New York called The Littlest Junkie, because babies were being born screaming and crying. No one could figure out what the problem was. And one good, bright spark doctor said, you know what? These kids are going through withdrawal. Their mothers are junkies. These kids, their bellies are cramping.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So addiction was being spread in the country way before anybody ever even looked at it that way or talked about it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And they always wonder how come people got into smoking pot and all that shit so easily? Because the addiction was already in your system. Unfortunately.
Well, they've done studies, and cannabis is not addicting in the way that other drugs are. And lumping cannabis in with those drugs is really unfortunate.
Well, the problem with that is that, when a kid is 14 years old and starts smoking pot every day, they don't think clearly. They don't go to school. They don't study.
They think more clearly, depending on depending on the kid and depending on what is. In other words, if the kid is looking within himself, then maybe that's an advantage. And pot increases one's imagination and all kinds of good things. But they didn't know about those things, and I don't want to get into an argument about my drug's better than yours, but there's been a lot of advances in knowledge and what pot does. And
listen, the CD oils are helping a lot of people.
Yes.
I'm hep to the hop, my friend.
The hemp plant itself, industrial hemp, is stronger than steel, stronger than concrete. We're getting ready to build the biggest studio in the history of the business in Nevada, and I'm going to build it out of hemp.
Really?
Beautiful.
And,
hemp, you could eliminate the boll weevil. You could eliminate, because you could replace cotton without having to contaminate the ground and kill people early. Like you say, you could build houses out of hemp, clothing, medically.
What is hemp,
can't believe
what is hemp?
I'm an activist myself.
On Amazon, there's 2,000 products that Amazon has that are created from hemp, from makeup, clothing.
Jack, what is hemp? What is hemp, actually?
Hemp? What is hemp?
What is
hemp? Yes.
It's a weed. It's actually a weed.
Okay. Yeah.
And you can grow hemp. You can grow hemp for marijuana purposes, or you can grow what they call industrial hemp, which you can never get high on. You can get the seedy oils out of the seeds of it, which don't get you high. That's a medical purpose. But the stalks and of industrial hemp have an incredible industrial use for this country, and are going to revolutionize. It'll revolutionize construction. I guarantee you. If you build a house, I can build. Here's the deal. I can build a house, 2 bedroom, 2 bath, yeah, fully constructed from square one in 2 weeks' time.
What? Really?
Done. Because hemp cures in 3 days. Okay? You can, and the climate inside that house will be 69 to 72 continually all the time. The air is pure. They lined a house in Beverly Hills of an older couple who were on oxygen masks, yeah? They went in and they lined their whole house with hemp, with sheetrock, all from hemp and everything. And the people came back to live back in the house again. Within a month, they were off the oxygen tanks.
Huh.
Right.
Unbelievable. Wow. What's the name of your book, Jack?
Family Legacy.
Family Legacy. Okay.
Yeah. If
I
you
want
go,
to get a copy of it.
if you go to familylegacy.com, the site, it'll take you right to Amazon. Everything. It's a great read.
I'd love to read it. I'd love to read it. Yeah. And tell me about what's the next book coming out. What are you going to call it?
Going to be another Family Legacy I wrote from my father's death to Kennedy's death, and I told the truth about a lot of things.
Okay.
And we wander back into the 30s.
What's your next book, Jack?
Say it again?
What's the name
of your next book?
It'll be Family Legacy Continued.
Okay.
Okay.
And when is that due out for production, or when is that due out?
We're getting ready to write it now because we're getting ready to make a film out of the first one. And then we're going to do a television series, which is going to be dynamite. We're going to do a TV series and go back to 1850 and come all the way forward. Start when they all came over, how it all progressed, how the country opened up, and tell the truth about how a lot of the illicit monies that they made went into the growth of this country. They underwrote the insurance companies. They underwrote Sears and Roebuck. All the construction jobs they gave the people to keep them working because their main income in the old days was gambling, extortion, and loan sharking. And if you didn't have a job, how could you pay them?
Yeah.
Right.
And they made sure everybody went to work.
Huh. Amazing. When is the movie coming out, Jeff?
The next one will be out at the end of 2019.
The movie?
The movie will be out, hopefully, by the end of 2019, yeah.
Good.
Hey,
and the new... Okay.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
And the new book? When do you think that'll come out?
The new book will be out by the end of, right before the end of 19.
19. Okay, great. Fabulous.
Okay. Hey, Jack.
I'm gonna order that book. I want to read it. No, the one, The Family Legacy. I bet it's fascinating.
Okay, Jack, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What's the one thing you learned about your dad that most people don't know? Because you lost him, you were like 16 years old, and you didn't know him
14.
very well.
14.
14. Worse. What'd you learn from his associates about him that impressed you most about your dad? And I'll
How bright he
ask
was.
you.
It was amazing how intelligent he was.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing how bright he was. He was a bright guy. You know, he did a lot of things that no one ever talks about. And he was a devout Catholic. You know, he supported the church, Fort Lee, big time, and one in Brooklyn. He was, they all did. You know, there was a big tie-in between the Catholic Church and the Familia. But he was very bright. He was a bright guy. He owned a lot of factories, dress factories and stuff like that in Pennsylvania. And I mean, I was a war child. You know, my father was stationed in Pennsylvania. It's amazing. When they were looking for him all over New York and everything, He was a sergeant in the Army teaching guys how to be longshoremen in Indian Gap, Pennsylvania. Yeah, in Indian Gap, Pennsylvania. And there's a funny story for you. This is a true story. The captain of his platoon, the guy at the Army place in Indian Gap, called up the New York newspapers and called up the police because all these articles were about Albert Anastasia, where is he, Murder Incorporated, all that shit. And they called him up and he said, "Hey, this Albert Anastasia guy you're all looking for." They said, "Who?" "Albert Anastasia. You guys are looking all over for him. I got him right here in my army." And the guy come back on the phone. He said, "What guy are you talking about?" He said, "Albert Anastasia." He said, "We're not really looking for him. That's all media pump." That's how much power they had.
Really? Wow. Unbelievable.
He was a sergeant.
My birth mother.
He never spent a night in the barracks. He was in Philadelphia every night because of the waterfront. And that's where he met my mother. That's where I was conceived at.
Unbelievable.
Nice.
My birth mother.
We're up against it for time. Jack, would you come back more often than waiting almost a year in between?
All you got to do is ask me, my friend.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
And I'm really appreciative of your company tonight. It's me, the Zigzag Man, and you are comfortably zoned. I'm in Alameda, California, 420 Studio down by the Lagoon, as Archie Bunker would have said. And Ronnie Rabinovitz and Jack O'Halloran gave me a wonderful podcast. Thank you, gentlemen.
Jack, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. Okay,
all
I'll
right.
be in touch
and
with
if
you.
If you're listening out there, please take care. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back when we're back. Adios.
Thanks, Jack. Take care, buddy.
God bless, guys. Take care. Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. Yeah, you too. Good, happy holidays.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.